Alright, so as I mentioned in the last video, we're going to talk about framework and structure and like placement on a page for stuff that will start to really make your website come alive. In this case, I want to talk about positioning an object on the page. Now in the last video we looked at floating, where we floated a column to one side or the other, and that looks great for text and columns and things like that. But maybe we've got an object that we want to place on the page somewhere, and we want to give it like an absolute position of where it is. We have like some control on how it appears and where it appears. If you were using a text layout program, you could just drag a graphic and drag it around right on the page exactly where you want it, and it'd be very easy to do. With CSS, you're trying to do that through code, and it makes it a little bit more difficult. So I want to take a look at that positioning now. So what I'm going to do is first add an image to my web page. So within here, on my desktop, I created or downloaded the old Apple logo. So let's go ahead and bring that in here. Alright, so let's go ahead and make sure that that works. I'm just going to save it, and I'll come back to my document. Alright, so there is the Apple logo, and it's appearing just after this first little paragraph. So just to keep things clean, let's go ahead and just remove it. And let's save that, refresh it again. Alright, so there is actually like a white box all the way around it. That's why it's not flush up in the corner, but it actually is. The graphic is flush left, top left. That's just where images go by default in HTML. But maybe I want to add some positioning to it. So what I can do is create a style for my image. Let's say we call this class position me. And I'll open and close a curly bracket there. And what I can do now is I can give it a position. So let's say position, and let's make this one relative. Now relative means its position is relative to where it's at on the page, and now we can control it by using other attributes like top or left or right or however we want to do that. So let's say position, so we're saying just make it relative, and now we can say from the top, let's make it 100 pixels down, and let's make it from the left, let's say 50% from the left. So it should be about kind of halfway across the page, but not quite. I'll show you a little trick to that here in a second. But now I just need to go ahead and apply that style to my graphic. So just like with everything else we've done so far, we can just go within the tag, and we can say class equals position me, and hit save, and I come back to my browser and hit refresh. Alright, so that is now 50% across the page. It's actually 50% to where the left-hand side of the graphic starts here is, and it's 100 pixels down, again, from where that graphic actually starts. So I've now positioned it on the page relative to where it was at. Now if I had a bunch of photos up here, a bunch of text, it would then be relative to where it's at after that text. So that's what that means. Now I said I would show you kind of the trick to fixing this so it was actually centered. Because by saying left 50%, you'd think that that would make it halfway across the page, but it's not looking at the middle of the image as a center point. It's looking at that left edge as a center point. So what I do is I come back to my image, and again I've got it here on my desktop. Let's see if I can do a get info and see how big it is. Okay, so it's saying it's 443 pixels wide. Now what I do is just calculate what's half of that, and I move it to the left, or margin it to the left, half that distance. So let's keep this simple, say 221 pixels. So that's half of that. So that way we're kind of finding our center point on the image. And we'll say margin left negative 221 pixels. So again, I'm applying a negative margin. I'm moving it to the left, 221 pixels. So I'll hit save, come back, refresh, and there is my Apple logo. No matter how big I make my browser, it's always going to stay in the center. So that's positioning relative. What I can also do is, if I had other stuff on the page, I can make it an absolute. So I'm going to save that and come back and hit refresh, and it doesn't do a whole lot because again I don't have anything really on the page right now. So let's do one thing. Let's go ahead and create an ID area. Do that with a pound, and we'll say top area again. Whoops. Pound top area. And I'll open and close that tag. And again, I'll do kind of what I did last time. I'll say background color is, I'll make it black again. Oops, not O's, zeros. And I'll say a height of 100 pixels just to try to make it more obvious. And let's come down here and actually apply that. So I'll say div ID equals top area. And I'll go ahead and close that out. Alright, so now you should be able to see a little bit better here. Let's go ahead and hit refresh. Now I've got a top area, and this is absolutely positioned regardless of where this is at, 100 pixels down. Now, just to try to make it make a little bit more sense, let's go ahead and say 50 pixels. Maybe we want this positioned only 50 pixels from the top, so it should overlay that black bar there, and it's only 50 pixels down. So again, you say absolute, it's like it doesn't care what's around it. It's going to tell you, it's going to put this exactly 50 pixels down from the top, absolutely 50 pixels down, not relative to anything else that may be in its way. Where now if I change this back to relative and save it and come back and refresh, it's putting it 50 pixels relative to this image being after this black bar here. Alright, so we took a look at that. Let's go ahead and take a look at the one other option, which is a fixed position. Now, a fixed position is probably what you've seen before as like a sticky footer or sticky header, where it's always in that same exact position no matter where the browser's at. So if I said position is fixed, in this case I may say bottom. And I'll say bottom 0 pixels from the bottom. And I'll go ahead and save that. I'm going to come back and I'll hit refresh. Now that Apple logo has positioned itself to the very bottom of the page, and no matter where I move my browser, it's fixed to the bottom of the browser. So now you've taken a look at different types of positioning, both relative, absolute, and fixed. There is a time and place for each of them. Hopefully that makes a little bit of sense to you.